Hello, everyone. My panelists, come on up. How are you? Yes? I'm glad to have you here. Day 2, afternoon, post-lunch, still standing. Twitter thumbs hot. All right, let's go and do this thing. So we've been talking about this legal trends report, right? Firms that are growing, firms that are static, firms that are declining. And so one of the questions I have for each of you, all of you today, where are you going to be in 5 years? Where are you going to be in 10 years? 20? Are you still going to have a firm? Are you still going to be in your firm? Is your firm still going to exist in that 5, 10, or 20 years? And who's going to be running it? I don't know if you think about these things from a day to day, but they pose real questions that bring us right to this future. Let me ask you this. I can't see you great, but I'm going to try. How many people here have a small firm of less than, say, 2 lawyers, solo or less than 2? All right, so quite a bit. How about less than 10 lawyers in your firm? Okay, that's like the rest. Anybody who's got like somewhere above 20, I got to look. Oh yeah, okay. Well, this is for all of you then. So maybe you could think about it this way. What are you doing today? What are you doing right now? What are you doing to cement your legacy so that you can, and you can fill in the blank here, but let's say, continue providing justice or ensuring job security for your staff and for all of their families? You could also think about it this way. And this is an open question for you. What do you think your greatest resource for sustainability is in your firm? Let me just hear a couple answers. What's your greatest resource? Give me some ideas. Lawyering, yes? Give me another one. Happy clients, right? Sustainability that way. Give me another one. Marketing, employees, the employees, yes. This is all getting to this point, which is the point of this panel, which is I'm going to suggest to you the most important resource that you have in your firm today, tomorrow, and in the future to maintain a profitable and sustainable long-term firm is young lawyers. It's young lawyers. Now, let me talk about young lawyers, but I want to frame the conversation before we begin, maybe set expectations. There's a lot of discussions about young lawyers out there, and we've all had them on this panel, and they go around like, oh, law school sucks, they're not training anybody, we get terrible young lawyers. We're not going to talk about that, and frankly, you know what? I love the law schools. Reality is, law schools get students for 3 years. We get them for the rest of their lives. This is on us, not on law schools. I don't want to talk about mentoring young lawyers. You know, the old school version, we should teach them about ethics. We should teach them about pro bono, right? We should go take them out to lunch once a month and show them what it's like. I don't want to talk about that. That's an old-fashioned version. I don't want to talk about dealing with millennials. I hear complaints from my generation all the time. I hear complaints from the millennials all the time. We're not complaining. This isn't about millennial experiences. What I do want to talk to, or who I do want to talk to, is you. This is about established lawyers and established firms. This is about our job. This is about our profession. This is about our duty, our destiny. This is our bus to drive. I want everyone to get their hands firmly on the wheel, foot on the pedal. We're driving this bus today, and we're going to talk about young lawyers. And we're going to talk about the 10 keys to building a profitable, sustainable, and innovative firm with young lawyers. And the first key, you got it, young lawyers. How do we retain them? How do we hire them? How do we grow them? How do we get leaders out of them? How do we make them the people that run our firms in the new legal economy? How are they the ones that take our firm and we grow? So that when Clio reports on your firm in 10 years, like, that's my firm. Do you see that line going through the ceiling? I hired young lawyers. That's what we want you to have today, a toolbox to do that. and I got the coolest people in the world to bring us there. Now, let me just give you our 10 quick, and then I'm going to introduce you to our folks. Here's the 10. Ready? Write them down as fast as you can. All right, don't. You'll hear them all through. Young lawyers, retention, value, innovation, meaningful work, culture, diversity, inclusion, sustainability, leadership. Got those? One by one, we're going to do it. So, rather than have the introduction we might normally do, something more fun for us, 2 truths and a lie. About each of them, you guys have to figure out which one is the 2 truths and a lie. And the reality is, I didn't tell them. They don't know. So, to immediate right, your left is Kenton Brice, who's an amazing law professor at the University of Oklahoma, loves whiskey, lived in Tibet, has a cat named Kitten Brice. Okay, so next to him is Kim Bennett, who has the K. Bennett Law Firm. You may see her on Watch Us Lead. She's that face no one forgets. Kim traveled Russia at age 13. Will never, ever eat monkey brains again, and has voiced over a famous commercial. Only she knows the truth. And finally, Janet Welch, who's executive director of Michigan Bar. She has hitchhiked Spain with a total stranger, binge-watched every episode of Ballers, and had dinner with the Chief Justice of Scotland. Again, only she knows which of those two and which aren't. All right, you guys ready? Yeah? All right, let's do this. Kenton, can we just start with talking about who we are inviting into our profession? Who's going to law school? Who are these people? What do they look like?
Yeah, great question. So the law student of today is just a little bit different than they were 10 years ago. So I graduated law school in 2009. I've been through the whole process, practiced. Law students today are actually more non-traditional than ever. We have young professionals that already have careers that have decided to go to law school after already having an established career. And so they're already coming with experiences that have informed their entire law school career, and they're wanting to take those into a firm immediately to provide value. And so that old model of you're going to come straight through high school, undergrad, law school, you don't know a thing about the real world, that's not necessarily true for a majority of our students now. And so when we talk about what are they looking for in a firm, they're looking for the possibility of getting on the ground quickly and providing value within year one, right? And they don't define value as, hey, I get to sit in a basement and do document review for 14 hours a day, so I provide value for you through profit. But it's more like, how can I actually provide real value to build this firm with you, right? And so they're looking for those types of experiences. They want them to be authentic. They don't want lip service. They want to have true, real value, real meaning in their work starting in year one. And don't get me wrong, they also want wellness. They want work-life balance, and that is not a cop-out. That's real. They want to work hard, but they also want to have value back to them as an individual. And so it's a value proposition for most of our students. They're coming in, they already have experiences, they want to apply those in a legal setting. So for example, we have nurses who decide to get their JD because they look at healthcare law and say, that's jacked up, we need to change it, and I want to help change it. And so it's really discouraging when they get into a traditional law firm and there's no room for innovation. So their profile's changing, and it's just changing more and more as we see students come in. And so this idea that they're all this whiny millennials is not really true. And so they're looking day one, how do I actually engage with the firm to provide value after I pass the bar, of course. And so let's hope they do that first. So
there's that balance that we hear out there between expectations of young lawyers, or why they're coming into law, like what they want to do, and then there's the skill set that they get when they're in law school. And I don't know if it's expectation that's causing the tension. It's the skill set that's causing some tension. Can you just address that for a minute? What are law schools doing to build the skill set to meet the needs of law firms like us?
Yeah, so this is hard to generalize among all law schools in the nation because every law school is a little different. We were just having a conversation earlier today about what BYU does, what Suffolk Law does, what OU, where I work, does. We're all just a little bit different flavors. So you're going to have that core skill set of like, you need to think like a lawyer. We're going to teach you how to think like a lawyer through the Socratic method and demeaning you for 3 years. But there's also now there's two other areas really coming out in law schools, and one is wellness. Like there's a big wellness push in law schools because law schools pay attention to what's going out in the industry, right? And so how do we create wellness programs that actually are meaningful to our students so they can start thinking about this now, right? And so create a skill set for how to engage with stress at a real level. And so we're starting to teach that in law schools, right? When I went to law school, we didn't teach that. That was only 10 years ago. So right. Law schools are morphing a little bit in that. And then you have the tech and innovation space, which is what I work in mostly. And every law school's got a little different flavor of this. Sadly, a majority of law schools still aren't doing much in that space. But for the schools that are doing, we're doing what we can with the resources we have. And it's true, we have them for 3 years. The first year is all mandatory curriculum, so we really have them for like 2 years, right? And then we just want to get a mindset for them, a skill set to be innovative, curious, imaginative, and so when they get into law firms, they can continue that and grow in that. That's what our hope is. Like, I'm not going to teach them how to master coding in OU Law. That's just not what I do, but hopefully I can expose them to enough technology or innovation mindsets that they can go into a practice and grow that and kind of get in and have that value. So law schools, traditional legal curriculum, we're really good at that, right? Torts, contracts, Civ Pro, right? We're really, really good at teaching those fundamental skills in those knowledge areas. But now we're starting to grow in these other knowledge areas that law schools never really done before. And it's kind of meeting the needs of the current student, right? Your students want to be day one practice ready. We're doing what we can with the resources we have to get them at least to practice somewhat ready, right? And so we're getting there.
I think that so many of us would like to say, as a lawyer that's coming out, we'll hire you because you have your MBA. We can use you for marketing. We need you for finance. We need you for, I don't know, where's David Calaruso, for coding, right? We got to have some coding here. There's all of these real life business skills. As Mark Britton said, we are business people, right? There's a whole set of business skills that you bring with us. It's not realistic to put that all in law schools, but I would like to hear just for a minute, how close are you getting?
Good question. So that's why you ask good questions. Again, it's about exposure, right? It's giving them a base level exposure to these skill sets. So marketing's a great example. Like our law schools trying to figure out how to teach young lawyers how to blog, right? Future young lawyers how to blog, how to be on Twitter, how to do it in an ethical way, how to do things that you're already getting in CLEs as a lawyer. We're trying to incorporate some of that. But we can't have them master it, right? It's exposure level information. So marketing a law firm, finances of a law firm, like we can expose them that these are real concerns in law firms, but we don't have the time. Like you're talking 2 short years, really. It's 3 years, but really the first year curriculum is the same thing every year. So we have 2 years. And so we're seeing more actually joint JD MBA programs. We're seeing, and we have those, and we're seeing more joint JD, like Masters of Public Health for those people that want to go affect that area, for those people that really want to specialize. But for the general lawyer that's graduating, they're getting a flavor, right? But they still need a structure in place after they graduate to help grow in those areas. Like we're just planting seeds, right? And we just want to have really healthy seeds when they get out there. And so we're doing what we can with the resources we have. Again, that's kind of my mantra. Like law schools guess what? We don't have a lot of money. And so we don't get to have these massive programs, a lot of us. And so again, planting those seeds and then suggesting dual degree programs for those people that want to have that MBA experience and get there.
Well, and to give a shout out to Kenton, he brought his students here. He's got a bunch of students. In fact, are you guys in the audience? Who's students of Kenton's? Are you here? They're being shy like that. Don't make us clap, man. Don't embarrass us.
I've actually instructed him not to come to this, so he can actually go get training on Clio, because our clinic just implemented Clio. And so I'm like, you go be the champion for that. You don't worry about listening to me. You get to hear me for 2 more years. Yeah.
So let me move this over to you, Kim. And okay, so we're working on preparing young lawyers through law school. But I think the real question is, how are we preparing law firms to bring in young lawyers? It's on us to bring them in. It's on us to find that bridge. What should we be doing?
Right. So I think this is it working? Y'all can hear me? Okay, good. So I think this is a great question, and I believe it is our responsibility to move the industry forward. And so there are a few things that I can think about as a practicing attorney that we need to really be considering as we're bringing in young lawyers. I think the first one is like mindset. Our mindsets, not theirs, right? To say that the traditional model is broken, right? If we don't think it's broken, we see signs that it's broken, there's a lot of pieces of that model that's not working, and that we have to take it upon ourselves to start realizing how things are not functioning well in our current businesses before we start bringing in young lawyers to a broken model, right? And with that, as a follow-up, is to not bring them along that same journey, right? There's a better way to bring up, uplift, teach, support lawyers, young lawyers, than maybe some of us have had. And so I think there's an opportunity there for us to, put in the right support structures, set the expectations on the front end. I think, as we were just saying, young lawyers are really clear what they want. Wellness, they want value. Yes, everyone needs to get paid, but you didn't hear money is the first thing, right? They want a substantive experience. And so for me, that looks like, if we're breaking free of the traditional model, is outright, every law firm today should stop hourly billing. Because you can't give somebody health and wellness, you can't give somebody like breaking free of traditional structures if we're still trading time for money. And I mean, I challenge everyone in this room as a practicing attorney to say, are we living healthy lives by doing that? Right? And I don't think that's just an attorney thing. I think it's a service professional issue that decides to continue to do that. But if we really are trying to say it's time to bring them into an environment that's healthier, that allows them to be valuable, that really understands that what they bring to the table is important, even if it's not the substantive skills, right? There are things like we need to really rethink how we're designing these businesses for where the industry is going, whether we like it or not.
So Kim, the whole legal economy is shifting. Every firm is going to shift with that, or be those firms that are dropping on the chart and declining. We can't practice law by looking in the rearview mirror and saying, the way my mentor brought me up, I'm going to bring you up, young lawyer. I'm wondering if you could just talk a minute or touch on the mindset of today's firm, that it's not the rocket by which young lawyers have to adjust, but all of us have to play forward. I wonder if you could just talk about what it looks like playing forward.
Yeah, I think the mindset is a collaborative mindset, right? It is a understanding that we need to embrace, and we were just creativity and curiosity in firms, right? When we're billing by the hour, we are really holding ourselves back from the opportunities that exist when we are no longer tying ourselves to that, right? Where you can create that space, that research and development space, so that you can design something new, something different, something that you haven't had before. But if we're still looking to the past and continuing to build up what in the same structures that we have, where it's the partnership model, right? Or, you have to get trained in like the docker review because you do, but there's great AI and technology out there that could do it, so let's provide something better. So, I would say it's really looking at how we currently structure, what can be changed, and then moving forward with curiosity and creativity to allow both those young lawyers and the ones that are here, us, right, to design a better model together, right? Because everyone has a great and important way to design. Everyone has the ability to provide input into what a better design would look like, and if we only think it comes from us, and truly us as attorneys, I think that also means anyone that's in our team, paralegals, other team members, service providers, people that see how you operate, it's really important and imperative that we stop making us be the only decision makers in what the future of law looks like.
Yeah, great point. It's every time we bring a young lawyer into our firm, even interns, I'm always shocked because I have this mindset of like, I'm going to teach you so much. And the reality is they always end up teaching us so much. They bring our firm ahead. They bring us along with tech tools they have or ideas or a different vision of priorities and help us reprioritize our goals. Sometimes they're going to bring, new core values, new cultural pieces. You go, that's a great idea. Wellness, we should have that as part of our firm culture, right? Anyway, so I agree exactly what you said. Janet, as a former bar president, where we struggle all the time with the mantra, what have you done for me lately, bar, right? Which I think is very unfair, and there's a great many things that bars do. But one of these resources or tools that bars have is to help law firms stay current, relevant, sustainable. And I'm wondering if you can talk about maybe some of the tools that are out there that bars have that can help us raise the tide when we bring in young lawyers. It will be. Or you can trade with Kim.
Hello.
There we go.
Thank you for that question, Patrick, and for acknowledging the responsibility and the burden that bar associations have, particularly state bar associations, particularly integrated mandatory bar associations. So I wake up every morning and I go to bed every night with the well-being of 45,000 lawyers on my conscience. So acknowledging that the traditional answers to how law practices operate are broken. I want to really endorse that. The idea of really listening to what new lawyers have to say and what their needs are, I really, really endorse that. I think one of the most important things that bar associations bring, in addition to the solidarity, the recognition that you're not in this alone, is getting back to what Mark Britton said yesterday, is the why proposition. Why are we doing this? And that is, I think, the essence of what new lawyers are looking for, meaning in what they're doing. Because if we're going to have sustainable law practices, it isn't just financially sustainable. You can't have a sustainable law practice that is making money but is making people miserable at the same time. So bar associations have the resources to provide help to lawyers who are struggling with that, but I also think that our job is to nurture new ideas about how to practice. And I told Patrick I wanted to share with everyone this afternoon my experience meeting the happiest lawyer of the 45,000 lawyers that I interact with and worry about every day, including my son and myself. The happiest lawyer I encountered is a lawyer in Australia. And I want you to take down his name. His name is Luke Geary. Luke as in Luke Perry, Geary as in Geary Street in San Francisco. To situate him on the millennial Gen X spectrum, he graduated from law school in 2003, went into big law. He got on the hamster wheel for, working 1 billion billable hours, and I totally agree with the billable hours condemnation. 3 months into his practice in big law, a friend of his said, I'd like you to take a case pro bono with the Salvation Army, which is called Salvos in Australia. He took that case. He loved it. He helped a grandmother keep custody of her kids. In the next 5 years, he founded a legal clinic for the Salvation Army. Then he founded another legal clinic for the Salvation Army. And the way this story usually goes, you're probably expecting me to say he's had this wonderful career in big law, and he's now the pro bono coordinator of this big law firm. But instead of that, what he did was, 5 years in, he arranged with the Salvation Army to set up a law firm that provided corporate business legal services, and that law firm funded another law firm that he also helped found that does entirely legal aid. So he founded a whole new way of supporting legal aid. And I think it's that imagination about how we can be different in serving the public and meeting legal needs that bar associations need to recognize and promote and inspire.
Let's talk about leadership, because you're heading down that road. That's a lawyer who, found an alternate career, found his own path, did his own thing, inspired others. I love that kind of model leadership. Kim, you see these leaders. You know these people in your community. And I'm wondering, what do we have to do to attract that leadership? How can we not both attract, identify, but build young leaders in our firms to do things like that for us?
Great question. Okay, so how can we attract and build young leaders in our firms? It's giving them a space to be curious, right? I think really thinking about that and understanding that when it's time to develop a new offer, a new service, a new product, that you bring that conversation to everyone that's in your firm, right? It's being collaborative in how we develop our firms and develop the services that we have to offer. It's giving them the space to understand that they can go out and seek and explore and bring back to you or to the rest of the team opportunities that exist, right? Because we have students that are coming out as second careers, so there's a lot of information they have to bring to the table. And even if it's not their second career, they still have lived. There's still a lot of information that they have to bring to the table that can really support that. And so for me, it looks like providing the opportunity when I'm hiring to say, what do you want? What are your goals? Where do you want to go? Because if their goal is to start a firm, great, let's design for that, right? Let's design the experience to help them do that. There's going to be different things they're going to need to experience while they're working with me, right? Because listen, people should not be working with you forever, ever. Like, they're going to grow. Like, the best way to create the next leader is the best way to be a leader is to create the next leader. That's how I look at it, right? So, or if their goal is to be known in this particular area of law, or they want to do a lot of pro bono service, how do you build that in and design that opportunity for them so they can be successful, so that we can design these firms of the future because we're listening to the people that are in this industry?
Can I turn that around? This is for maybe for you, Kenton, maybe for you, Janet, or Kim. What can we do wrong, right? You're in that interview and you're talking to this young lawyer and he's, she or she's got this great resume, things look great, somebody who's fine, it could be a good addition. How can we screw that up and scare them away or hire them only to have them leave and then blame them for being millennials? Give me some talking points for how we fail so we know what not to do.
Okay, so this goes back to the billable hour. And so if you're in an interview and you're talking about, hey, we're an innovative firm, but you also have a requirement to bill 2,000 hours before you even have a bonus structure in front of you, you have just disincentivized them to actually work for your firm, right? I have students that routinely will tell me, I will willingly pay for a better firm with my salary. Like, I will take a pay cut. I don't need it's a totally different mentality. When I went to law school, when I first got there, it was all about six-figure incomes right when you graduate. And then the recession hit, right? And then that became a huge fallacy. Well, the recession's long gone, and we're still feeling the ripple effects in the legal community of it. But the students today, they're not thinking the same way that lawyers thought or young law students thought when they went to law school 15 years ago, right? They're thinking, I want to make an impact, I want to make a difference, I want to be involved in my community, and I need a firm that's going to allow me to have that kind of freedom. Now, that's not to say that they don't want to work hard. They want to work crazy hard, right? But they want to work hard in something that they believe in, that has meaning, and that serves their clients well. So don't put them in a basement doing doc review with a client they'll never meet, right? That has zero value to them. And so for an interview process, if you're talking about how innovative you are, but then you talk about, we have 3 different types of associates. We have partner track who bill 2,000 hours. Then we have this pseudo track that's only 1,600 hours. You're still tagging everything that their value is just their time. And if that's the way you're structured, this is where Kim and I get really excited. We've got to figure out how to restructure our pricing structures so we can restructure our incentivizing structures, right? So it's structural for law firms. And I'm not saying it's easy, But if we want to foster growth of the next generation of good lawyer for our community, for the benefit of our firms, create them sustainable firms, we've got to rethink how we're billing time. And not even using time as a metric for everything, right? And I'm going to stop there before I get myself in trouble. So, yeah.
Kenton, Janet, in a word, just a piece, a word or two, you build young lawyers and leaders by
listening to them and letting them make mistakes and helping them when they do.
Kim.
You build young lawyers by setting up the foundation for, I guess the same thing, for failure and embracing it as a part of the journey.
Ken.
So I picked up on this conference.
Only get like 3 words, dude.
3 words? How about 4?
Okay.
Okay. Human and high performance, right? I see Josh right there. He just like counted out those. Does that sound familiar to you, Josh? Okay, so I learned that term yesterday, and I was like, that's exactly what we've been trying to tell our students. Thank you for giving me words, right? Appreciate it. Human and high performance. It's actually Clio's like mantra for their people. And so, yeah, so those are 4 words.
So let's talk about this next piece of this, value. Value. What's the value that you're going to bring to young lawyers? We know what the value they're going to bring to you if you grow them, nurture them, support them, give them what they need. But what does value mean to the young men and women who are coming out of your class and taking the bar?
So that's an interesting question because it's not the same for every single person, right? So it's a fluid answer depending on the person's experiences, depending on the firm structure, heck, even the practice area you want to go into, right? Value for a young lawyer going into a estate planning practice is a little different than value for a lawyer going into criminal defense, right? So a lawyer that I have a young law student that wants to do family law. Did anybody go to law school wanting to do family law? Let me show of hands. Yeah. Like a few, good. And so I never wanted to do family law, so I thought that was weird. And so his value proposition is different than mine from what my outlook is for a law firm. His value proposition is providing closure for people through the divorce process, and not going to court, right? And so before even thinking about litigation, how do we engage in that, and how do we provide that value for the client? And if I can do that in a structure, that would be so meaningful to me. That's 0 meaning to me, right? And so it's having these conversations about having bespoke value, right, for the people and their experiences and what they want to do with their careers. But I can tell you this, it's got to have this foundation of meaning. It's got to have a foundation of my work matters, right, for my community, for my world, and for my clients, and for me. And part of the value proposition is this idea of work-life balance. And so there's these foundational tenets that are kind of through all these, but they're not the same for every single one. And so I think we can't actually give a metric of this is value, this is the easy formula. What I would think is we think about relationship versus accomplishment. And so we are wanting to foster those relationships and just accomplishment after accomplishment, and you're just driving to do the next thing amazing, but you have 0 relational components to that, and that creates burnout, and you don't have anybody to fall back on. So it's a mixed bag, right? I mean, you just can't say value is this one piece, but I think it's this fluid concept that can be different for a lot of different people and what they want to do and what they want out of their careers. But there are kind of these foundational tenets, and I'll stop there before I keep talking.
Jen and there's the idea of it takes a village sometimes, right? And we're not islands unto ourselves as solo or small practitioners or even medium-sized firms. We have this bar out there in every county, in every state. There's national bars. Tell me about the value that bars bring. How can bars help us build value for young lawyers and give them additional things in this community that we're using to raise them?
Well, a couple things. First of all, I think one thing that bar associations can do is help curate where the tools are that can help firms be more profitable and help their lawyers have a fulfilling experience, including identifying Clio, which our bar does as a good resource, and pointing in the direction of quality tools. The other thing that we can do at the state bar level is gather good data and drill down the way that the data that Clio provides gives a good picture of what best practices are and what's working in any given time and what the trends are. I think that's really important. Can I freelance a little bit on what Kenton has to say as well? Because as he was talking, I was thinking that a long, long time ago when I was just coming out of law school and interviewing, one quality that I think young lawyers are looking for that was totally not part of the conversation, that is a different dimension than meaning, and meaning is really important, is fun. You want to like the people you work with. And it was not at all a part of the conversation that you would have fun. And I just want to say, if I were just coming out of law school, I would want to work with Patrick, because he exudes such joy in what he does. And I think that if you don't have a firm that looks like it's enjoying what it's doing, that the lawyers are getting meaning and having a good time doing it, you're going to struggle to attract and keep people.
Let's talk about values twin a minute and link it. So to me, value is different but similar to having meaning. When we say young lawyers need to have meaning in their work, we have to bring them meaning in what they do. But I think meaning for this conversation is a step towards the question of how do we retain young lawyers. I think all of us have this experience. You'll hire a young lawyer and you say, I'm not going to hire any more young lawyers. I'm done hiring young lawyers. Because the last one I hired worked for a year. All I did was pay, and then they left, and it was a terrible investment. I'm never hiring more young lawyers. Then you hire another one, and you keep repeating this, and they go to a different area of law, or they change states, or whatever, and you can't ever keep them there. We always say, damn those young lawyers. I'm not hiring them anymore. Which I got to tell you, after doing this for almost 30 years, is no longer my attitude. But that's why I have you up here to explain why that's a messed up concept. Talk about meaning and retention and pair those things together. Kim, is this yours?
Sure, meaning and retention. So I think culture is like a great, I mean, I know we're saying that, but like cultural fit and like understanding what it's like. So, we're whole humans, right? Like, and I think when we are building businesses, we just build it like we're whole lawyers. Like, that's it, right? Like, and I mean that in a way I mean that like we don't even think about the other people on our teams, right? So like the paralegals, the service providers, anyone else that is there supporting our growth. But so when we're thinking about retention, it's like giving that opportunity to provide that value, to develop opportunities for them to grow and maybe bring that whole human part of themselves into their business, right? Because I think and I'm gonna take a step back and say, I was never the person who went into interviewing like, oh, I want to work 100 hours a week and get paid $100,000 a year. That sounds amazing. It didn't, right? So like now that more younger attorneys are saying it, I think a lot of us thought it. Like the money sounded good, but when you thought about that math, it didn't work out. I made more money when I was doing retail. Why would I want to do that, right? But it just seemed like the way. So I think when we're thinking about from a retention perspective, go back to like, what experience do you want, right? What experience would keep you there, right? What experiences are the things that would drive value for you outside of just being this lawyer, right? Because we're whole humans that have other things that really drive us. So I would really take some time and think about how you're designing your firms to allow for, without billing by the hour, opportunities to go out and support a cause someone cares for, and that's part of what is expected, right? Because that's fine, and thinking about, well, how can I design a policy that supports, okay, if you've just had a child, you can stay home, right? Or you want to have, there's a firm out there, she's a personal injury attorney who lives abroad, and she had a daycare in her firm to provide a better opportunity for her entire team, not just attorneys, right? So I just think it's like if we're thinking about retention, we're meaning, right? It's really thinking about the whole human and saying that their life doesn't stop when they come into the doors or leave your doors or virtual doors or whatever that is. And let's try to really design intentionally to create a space that's a little more creative, that gives and embraces that curiosity and gives them the chance to create that impact they want to see outside of maybe just what they do day to day as an attorney.
So you're heading right into the next question, which is innovation, right? Innovation. How many of you are guilty? I'm not going to have you raise your hands. Are guilty of this? Young lawyer, we're glad to have you here. We're a very creative, innovative firm. We're very open. We like to have ideas. You just come knock on my door and tell me whatever it is you want me to know, and we'll talk about it. Knock, knock, knock. I really think we should do this. Great, thank you. Never do a thing about it, right? I have a friend of mine who went to a big firm because they said, we really want somebody who's innovative and creative and come in and just redesign this whole firm. And he met with all the partners and he gave all the lists of the things that they need to do. And they didn't do a single one of them. And he said, I quit. I give up. Innovation's about us, not about young lawyers. But they come with a laundry list of ideas that are new and fresh and different for us. How do we actually capture that and put it into our firm? Open to anybody.
So I'll talk to this. So my experience in my law firm before I transitioned to education was I was an associate attorney that was the innovation person. And they actually did this really well. Basically, I would come with an idea, and they would give me the freedom to run with it, and they did not tie my compensation to that, right? And so this goes back to that relationship versus accomplishment idea, right? I had room to fail. I had absolute room to fail, and I did horribly. Cost the firm $10,000, right? Real money. And so the thing failed. But we had a relational component. We're like, we trust you. I hope you trust us to know that no matter what happens with this idea and this experiment, it's not tied to your compensation or your livelihood here, right? We know you're going to fail because we also failed. These guys were innovation mindset type of attorneys. And so give people room to fail and don't tie their compensation to it. And this goes back to billable hour. If you're still requiring billable hours and you guys think you're doing the calculus in your head of, oh, he's got this really cool idea or she's got this really cool idea, that's going to take time. Well, if time is my only metric for making money, you're not as valuable to me anymore, right? On a profit-centered standpoint. And so, again, it's going back, and even if you're billable hour, like my firm was like a hybrid system, and so they're like, yes, we create a category for you to bill your time for the projects you work on, and so that we can keep track of it to make sure we know if there's a return on investment. It was just good data keeping, basically, but my compensation was not tied to it. And so I was incentivized, right, to help the firm build. And to this day, I haven't worked for them for 4.5 years. I still have I was texting with my old legal assistant last week about something that they're thinking about. And so it's that relational component where like, trust us, you're okay, right? Go out, try something. Because you know what? If you're even billing by the billable hour, your billable hour is probably a lot more than your young associate. So have them go fail, right? So do the economics on it real quick. And so if you are going to be innovative, you are billing by the hour, there's still a place for you to say, go do it because your $200 an hour is nothing like my $385 an hour. And so I will go make the bigger money. You go try to figure out how to do something. So even if you are like staunch, like you guys are crazy up here for talking about killing the billable hour, there's still an opportunity to be innovative and basically create that component for your firm. Like, give it to them. Like, just give it to them and then have them manage it and let them fail, right? And then if they do fail, give them feedback. That would be good. And so have a feedback loop through that whole process. I would encourage you to get training on how to coach through that so that they're actually being encouraged through the process even when they are crashing the plane and it's fiery and terrible, right? And so, but sometimes they hit and it's really good, right? So he's not in here, but my student, like he's looking at our clinic trying to help them innovate. They gave him the freedom to do it. They gave him administrative access to Clio, right? And said, you go figure out how to automate all our documents. Go do it, because we don't have the time, we don't have the energy, and honestly, we don't want to. And so you please do this for us? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. He's got so much energy about it. And so if he gets into a law firm and they basically just say, oh, that's a great idea, that's hilarious. Hey, why don't you go do a doc review in the basement? I'm just gonna use that as my example all day. So that would totally kill his inspiration. He would leave that firm in a heartbeat.
So could I just say that innovation, don't chill it. Yeah. Don't scare it away. Don't stamp on it. Embrace it, love it, hear it, do it. Okay, can I move on? There's some words that we use all the time that I think are losing some meaning. Access to justice, what does that mean anymore? Everybody's got their own definition, maybe it has no definition. There's another word, set of words that are, I think, absolutely critical, especially in this day and age, but I feel like they're kind of dying, and I want to give some more meaning to them here. Diversity and inclusion, D&I. In our law firm, in Panelists Law, it's one of our core values, and we say right there, authentic and real people, you can't represent anyone until you represent everyone, right? We're part of that community. How critical is it to have diversity and inclusion living and breathing, not being just lip serviced in every one of our firms?
This is one of the things I wanted to talk about a lot. So like, let's be honest, we had a session here yesterday, and there weren't a lot of people at the session, right? This is an issue that is so important and vital to actually what we were just talking about a second ago, innovation, right? You can't be really creative if you have the same people at the table, right? Like at some point, we have to make a decision to say that we're not really showing up as our best selves, as our best industry, as our best systemic changes that we want to see if we keep on having the same voices making the same suggestions over and over again, even if it's a slight change, right? And so having the ability to really say that, listen, it's not as great. I'm a black woman, surprise, right? Sitting at a stage where there's not that many of us that talk, right? And it's not like we're not practicing, right? And so I think as we're in this space now, as we have this opportunity as leaders, as practitioners who are bringing up young lawyers, maybe it's time to blow up the old tables and create a new one and let them start designing some of that too, right? And that's moving to that inclusive mindset, that bringing multiple voices and not just giving them a chance to say something, but actually be included in the decision making. And I think that's something that we're really fearful is running these businesses. But like, if you want to open up and allow yourself to see the possibilities of a firm, it's embracing that my perspective is one and not the only. And not the only if I'm just only lawyers at the table, if it's only black women, only white women, only black men, white men. Like, we need the full diversity of where we're at and include those people at the table to have real, deep, honest conversations on what it looks like to show up as a better firm, as a better industry, so that we can create that change. And I'm really passionate about that because I just feel we're at this place in our industry where either it's going to happen with us or without us. And if we want it to happen with us, we need to really embrace all the voices that are telling us, hey, it's not quite working. So how can we do it a little bit differently?
Can you maybe just share a minute? I've seen this go really wrong in job interviews with having conversations with diverse lawyers. And they immediately, you can almost see it in young lawyers' heads like, I don't belong here. This isn't my place. This isn't going to work for me. I just want to leave. Why is this guy such an asshole? Right? I mean, you see these things unfold, and I'm wondering, our toolbox. What do we take away here today when we're looking for diverse lawyers and we want to embrace and live diversity in our firm? How do we do that from the first meeting? How do we attract in diverse lawyers to our firm?
I mean, I think it's like embracing that you're a whole human, be your whole selves. Like, if I just talk about only practicing law, then I would seem boring. But when people apply to my firm, they're like, oh, you talk about you're non-traditional, you talk about where I see you speak, or you're traveling, you're doing something else, and I feel like, or I'm doing subscriptions, and they're like, I feel like, well, there's an opportunity there for me to try things and test things, right? Your firm culture should show that in every place, right? Not just at the point they're interviewing with you. So before they come to even see it, we were talking, Nicole was talking about social media, right? And just exploring and having that story about that you're more than just an attorney, you're more than just a firm, there's other things you do. So I think it's like looking at how you're showing up and putting it out there, and then it's the tactics of where are you recruiting, right? If we're going back to the same kind of way of doing it, if you're looking at those metrics that maybe make a great lawyer, maybe they don't. I mean, I was a joint degree student in law school that was in there for a long time. You probably would have been like, oh, she was in law school forever, she was terrible. No, there's a reason behind it, right? But did you ask? Did you go to the next question? Are you going to the places to recruit students that have diverse backgrounds that really can add to your firm because that's the direction? So maybe you're looking for that master in public health student that maybe went to a school that you've never heard of, so what? But then you sit with them, you have the conversation. So I think it's like us not coming prepared to the interview, to understanding and doing the research on the person that we're interviewing, and then really giving them the space during the interview to say what they're interested in, and not only leaning back to hours, and not only leaning back to the things that we think about as firms as like maybe, leading to unhappy practices, unhealthy lawyers, and all of that.
Can I ask you just the talking points in this? Diversity and inclusion is important in every firm because, just a couple of words, because, why?
You want me to do it? Okay. So I think diversity, and I'll say in different ways.
You only get like 5 words on this.
Diversity is essential, right? Equity is like core, but without inclusion, all that crap doesn't matter, right? So like it's all great. You could tell me you have diversity, but if the diverse people aren't there, if you're not really being equitable at how you get there, then it doesn't matter because inclusion is really how you take it to the next level, and so that's how I would say it.
We are running quickly out of time. We're going to do a lightning round for 2 more topics, but I think this diversity and inclusion is critical. Can you give me your thoughts?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it's a core responsibility of bar associations to support diversity and inclusion at all levels, and to say that it isn't just about looking good. It isn't just about, although there's a value in letting clients know there's someone here who looks like you, it's also about the voices bring different ideas. It helps create change, and we need change, and bar associations really need to help that message.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to do a lightning round, all right? Culture. Culture, culture, culture. If you saw Jordan Couch talk today, and 2 hours ago, amazing job on talking about firm culture. It's really important. It's one of those things that's going to bring people in and keep people in. I'm wondering, and this is a challenge to you, could you all pick 5 words to describe your firm culture, and would anybody else in your firm describe those same 5 words? If the answer is yes, you've got a clear culture. If the answer is no, you have work to do. How do we create a firm culture that invites in and keeps in young lawyers?
You got to get real with what your culture, you have to know what it is first. That's how you do it, you have to know it, right? So like, I would say before you take a moment and I say, what are your brand pillars? Like, what are the 5 things you want to be known for? Like, how does your voice show up? How does your social show up? How do you show up in the type of cases you take and the people you work with? And then that's how they see your culture, right? Because words don't mean anything if you don't see the actions and behaviors behind it. But if you are really intentional about writing those things down, you will start moving in that direction. So for me, it's really just taking a moment to be intentional, capture your 5, and then exude it in every single thing that you do. In interviewing, in your social, in your posts, in how you take on clients, how you communicate with your clients, right? For me, I like to be knowledgeable yet witty, right? I want to be empathetic, right? There's things I want to be, fun. I want to be non-traditional, right? Like there are things you're going to come to me because all that. You'll go to my social and you'll realize it. You'll talk to me, you'll realize it. I hate the billable hour. You'll realize it, but I am who I am, and I'm always going to be like that. And that's how I think you do that, by understanding what it is and then exuding in it every single thing that you do.
Somebody once said to me that what they do for culture is they brand their weird. Just brand your weird, right? It's what makes you real and authentic and unique and special. It defines who you are, so you know who your tribe is, so you can stand with your tribe and know that you speak the same language and you're the same way.
Can I follow up with that as a trademark, as a brand person? Lawyers, embrace your brand, right? Seriously.
Right.
Like, here's the thing. Maybe we have ethical obligations. You can design around them. Let's stop with getting so scared about ethics. Design around your ethical obligations, right? But you have a brand. Embrace it. Show it. Be it. And that's the part that I think when you're so worried is because you're just not leaning into it. And as someone who was a little scared to sometimes come out here and say who I am, because I didn't want to get like whatever, I embrace my brand now. If you meet me, I'm going to tell you, stop billing by the hour. It makes no sense. If you meet me, I'm going to tell you these different things because that's just my brand, and I embrace that. So I just wanted to say that. Embrace your brand and live your brand.
We all got about 2 minutes maybe, and then I want to get some questions from you. So here's your kind of like very short question. How or when do we let young lawyers be the stewards for the future of our firm? At what point do we do that?
Day one. I mean, why would we want to not bring all voice? This is diversity and inclusion. All voices in. What have you learned? What is your experience? We need those voices. I don't know that there is a steward of the profession, but we all together are the profession.
And I'm going to jump in real quick because day one, I think, starts in law school. It's not day one after they pass the bar and join your firm. I'm just going to be honest. Law schools need help talking to the profession, and the profession needs help talking to law schools. And so get involved, get into mentorship programs, get into those ends of court, get into something where you're around law students because they have ideas. And they may not be very good ideas because they don't have any practical experience, but they need to know that, right? They need feedback. How are they going to get that feedback if they're in a vacuum? And so I think the day one of basically, what was the question? Stewards of our profession?
Steward, yes.
Yeah, like.
Stewards of our firm, our profession.
Because we're telling our law students, one, they're already under bar ethics rules basically while you're in law school, so you're already part of the profession, right? You may not have passed the bar, but you're already going through the process to get there. So we really need practicing lawyers in law schools talking to our students. We just do. And because, I mean, honestly, I practiced for 6 years. I've been out for 4. That shelf life of me having practice experience to my students is gone, right? Like, they're like, yeah, you don't know anymore, you know? And I'm like, no, I do, but trust me. But day one, it starts in law school. We need to foster that collaboration, that type of communication, because it takes all voices, right? This is part of the inclusive part of this, right? It's not just lawyers. It's lawyers, law students, legal professionals, paralegal programs. Everybody needs to be in this conversation about how we're fostering the next generation, the next great generation of legal professionals. Perfect.
We wanted to have like this confetti coming down and clowns running in and chihuahuas and tutus and this big celebration at the end, but we're out of time. Sorry, we couldn't do it this time around. But let me leave you with this, right? So we start with the question, how do you build a profitable, sustainable, innovative firm with young lawyers? And here is our answers from your panel, right? Hire young lawyers, focus on lawyer and staff retention, provide value inside the firm and outside to your clients and community, reward innovation, don't chill it. Give young lawyers meaningful work, things that make them proud to be in your firm. Establish a unique firm culture, make them part of your tribe, make sure you hire people that are part of your tribe. Promote diversity every way that you can, seek inclusion, create sustainability in your firm by finding the stability in the people you hire who want to be there, who love to be there, and cultivate leadership with everyone because they're the ones that are going to run your firm in 5 years and 10 years and 20 years. You want them standing there. I thank all of you for joining us, and we're going to take 2 minutes and 3 seconds of questions. Ready? Go. Tell you what, I'll take a microphone. I'll run down there. Okay, here you go.
So what's your, oh, Jesus. So what's your answer to not billable hours?
Be creative in design. It's unlimited. There's so much potential. Right now, flat fees, subscription, creative ways of designing it. But I think if you stop tying yourself to the billable hour and say, okay, how am I going to do this differently? You will give yourself the space to be creative and curious about how you could do it differently. So I would say flat fees at minimum, subscription maybe after, but like we were talking earlier, let's go back to how every other industry does it. You just take some time with the clients you're going to work with and set some parameters and what the scope of work is. And if it's outside the scope, it's like a change order like anything else, right? Like let's be let's be much more intentional about how we work with our clients.
Let's take as many questions as we can.
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
And I have a question that's similar. It's about profitability. I think one of the big questions or one of the big apprehensions people have about hiring young lawyers and also turning away from the billable hour model is to talk about, does this work make profitable sense? So is there, not data, but can you talk to that a little bit more? Because I think a lot of people lack exposure to understanding that getting rid of the billable hour can actually cause you to have more profits. And bringing in a more diverse audience, having more voices at the table, can actually increase your value. So can we talk about that a little bit?
Okay, 2.2 seconds, yes. Check out the Clio Chen's report. They show it to you. Thomson Reuters, they show it to you. Nobody realizes your full hourly rate, period. Show me, promise me, I promise you no one really does, because either you track your time horribly or you're gonna cut down your bills. So that's one. And then the other one is, like, if you just look at, there's a lot of data out there that will show you that if you bring more people to the table, you get much better solutions. So we just have to look at the data.
I got another question for you back here.
Hello. Very quickly, this is not a unique question, but it is, for me, the elephant in the room. Given the pressures of changing legal industry, the pressures of technology and automation, how are we going to train young lawyers in this new system, given that there's not enough time in law school, the low-hanging fruit of low-interest, low-stakes legal work is going away because of everything. So how do we train young lawyers to step up and be good lawyers?
Good question.
I'm going to put Kenton on the spot, and I'm going to say the first thing we need to do is figure out how to train lawyers more cheaply. Law school debt is just killing the economy.
Yeah, so we are out of time, but I'm going to make this really short.
And I'm going to take one more question, so you do it.
Okay, good. Okay, you're the moderator, man. Do what you want.
Let's do it. Come on.
So Eli, I think it's hard. You don't train to the tools of the trade, right? You train to the competencies that open them up to understand how the tools work at a later time, because tools are going to change, right? So legal research has changed considerably in the past 50 years, right? Books, CD-ROMs, online, now AI. And so how do we teach our young lawyers to think critically and evaluate the tools? That's a lifelong skill. How do you teach curiosity, right? How do you teach imagination? You can actually build those skill sets. It takes time, but if we're doing that, so when something comes, a new technology comes, or something that looks really scary, and Richard Susskind writes another book about the end of lawyers, right? They're not fleeing for the exits. They're thinking, oh, I have opportunity now because I know how to be imaginative in this process. I know how to critically evaluate this and I'm plugged into my community. I talk to people. I have this diversity component. It's inclusive and it's real. And then you know what your community needs, right? And so that's part of this. We got to kind of change. I do agree we need to make legal education cheaper on a whole. It's just very difficult right now. And so we're just not there yet. And so we're working on it, I promise. And so we want to make legal education as cheap as possible. And some schools. And so we're one of them. Anyway, I'll stop there. And what's the last question?
I think we're out of time because this clock just keeps going up and up and up. Everybody, thank you for joining us. Thank you for making this your priority. Thank you to my amazing panel. Thanks, guys.